Okay, you're good to go.
So, do either one of you own North Face? No? Yeah? How about a backpack? Do you have a backpack?
No.
No, what do you have?
A fleece.
You have a fleece? Yeah. Well, a lot of people say that I own an enormous amount of North Face, but it's for a good cause. It's for a legitimate reason. I've grown up living with North Face and being surrounded by North Face my entire life. In fact, my dad was actually a sales rep for all of New England. I've grown up going to sales shows, going to trade shows, watching my dad sell the line, and for my entire life, North Face has been a part of my life. So when I finally got old enough, my dad threw me in the ring and said, "Chris, here you go. You get to sell some North Face." All right? So I'm here today to pretty much tell you that North Face is probably the best outdoor company there is on the market. Okay? It was founded in 1968, and it's a leading company in the outdoor industry. The North Face does so much. They're a leader in the industry, whether it be their RD&D, which in North Face refers to research, design, and development. It's a little bit different than most companies. And then there's also we talk about the technology and their sustainability. North Face has an enormous technological department where they constantly are inventing new products and new things that help push the market forward as a leader. They also are extremely dedicated to sustainability. The North Face does an enormous amount for the environment, and believe it or not, most of the public doesn't know all the things that they do. So, why the North Face? Why is it so much better? Well, first of all, we're going to go with research, design, and development, the RD&D. RD&D is a little bit different in North Face than it is at companies like Mountain Hardwear and Patagonia because it's athlete-inspired. So what that means is the North Face hired multiple athletes. They have guys like Jimmy Chin, who's climbed Mount Everest as a photographer for 5 times, Pete Athens, who summited Everest 7 times, and Tom Walsh, who's going to be in the U.S. Olympic Games as a skier. These are the guys that help tell the research designers what they want in the product. So when they come back to the design company, they say, "I want this, that, and another thing." The designers then turn that around and turn it into a product. This means that the gear is extremely applicable to pretty much any outdoor activity and is highly tested. Secondly, though, you also have the lab tests. Once a company makes a new product, for example, the 2-meter dome, which is an expedition tent that they take up on Everest, the 2-meter dome is tested in wind tunnels where the wind is up to 250 miles per hour. If it passed that test, it then goes on to the athletes, and the athletes test it on places like Mount Everest. So every bit of gear is highly tested and extremely durable. They also have a lot of innovative products. North Face is a little bit different, and they don't like to follow market trends. They like to go out and do their own research and determine what the market really wants. So, for example, they've come up with new technology for insulation, different parts for shoes and things like that. But this kind of leads into my next point, the technology. North Face has tremendous technology, as I've already spoken to. For example, I'm going to use Thermoball. Thermoball is a brand new product that the North Face has just recently invented. It's brand new to the market and just released this last year. Now, some of you may know that, for example, down is extremely warm and extremely packable, but when it gets wet, it doesn't keep you warm. Things like Polartec and synthetic liners are really good when they get wet, but they're not quite as warm and they don't pack as small. So North Face set out to find a medium. They created something called Thermoball. Thermoball packs down really small, it's super light, just like down, but it's made of a synthetic product, so it has the synthetic qualities of a synthetic product like Polartec. Now, you might say, why? Why do this? The North Face is constantly trying to produce products that are extremely efficient for the athletes, but for the regular consumer as well. So when they went to design Thermoball, they designed it so that it's actually a synthetic, essentially feather. It's identical to down in its qualities, its packing abilities, and things like that, but can be compressed. Another fantastic technology that's coming out of North Face in their newest shoes is called P-Bax. P-Bax is in the sole of the shoe, and it actually gives you an enormous amount of rebound in your step. So when you take a step in a traditional shoe, you lose about 30% of the energy in that step because of the shoe. It absorbs it. P-Bax is a rigid plastic piece that sits right in the shoe, that rebounds all that energy back into your step. Now, shoe companies have been doing this for years, but the problem that they've had is in extreme temperatures, like in mountaineering environments or deserts where we have athletes running 100 miles in extreme heat, those plastics break down, the chemical compounds break down. Pebax does not react at all to heat or cold, so it generates the same motion that you would with a normal step, regardless of condition. But finally, I think my most important point, sustainability. North Face does an enormous amount for sustainability. In fact, they've introduced this new thing called blue sign technology. The biggest water wasting product when producing clothing is dyeing the clothing. To put colors in takes an enormous amount of water. The North Face is geared up with blue sign technologies, and what they've done is they've minimized the water usage when dyeing products to almost half of what they used to. Currently, 36% of their products are blue sign technology certified, and by 2016, they're hoping that almost 60% of their products will be doing this. There's also polybag recycling. So you might ask, what is a polybag? A polybag is when a sales agency receives a product like a jacket, a backpack, shoes, it comes in this plastic bag. And that's because it's been shipped overseas. They want to maintain the integrity and quality of the product, so they put it in plastic bags so it doesn't get wet or dirty. Okay, but plastic is probably one of the worst things we can do for our environment, especially just throwing it out. So what is the North Face doing? It's taking these plastic bags, these poly bags, and then recycling them and using them again. Okay, so every bag gets multiple uses. There's also the closed loop. The North Face does something where, regardless of brand, you can send your clothing to the North Face, and they will recycle that clothing. They'll use the products in future products, and that way clothing doesn't get tossed in the landfills. That way all that work, all that energy that's been generated to produce one article of clothing, it can now be contributed to 2 articles of clothing, which minimizes the amount of impact put into the industry, like the chemicals that come out of producing this material, the dyes, the water usage. So it's a really good way to protect the environment. And finally, durability. North Face makes some of the most durable stuff in the world. The longer something lasts, the less likely someone's got to have to buy it again. So if you make something that's really tough, you don't have to produce something. And if you don't have to produce it, then you save an enormous amount of carbon emissions, enormous amount of shipping costs. Pretty much anything plastic with those poly bags, they don't have to ship that again. These are all just some of the things that the North Face does, and they call it the virtuous cycle. And the reason the virtuous cycle is the model for the North Face is never stop exploring. And in the virtuous cycle, what you want to protect your environment as much as you can, because the very industry that they are in pertains to the survival of the natural world. We constantly want to explore our world. We constantly want to never stop exploring. So, as an industry which revolves around the natural world, why wouldn't we protect it? And that's what the North Face does. So, in review, the North Face has a tremendous RD&D, research, design, and development program. They come up with constantly new ideas and constantly consult people like athletes and other designers to make sure that they're getting the products right. They have tremendous technology, and it's just their commitment to sustainability is tremendous. Now, depending upon where you find yourself, whether it be 10,000 feet up in the Grand Tetons of Montana or Wyoming, or down the streets of urban New York, you may determine that maybe the North Face is too techy for you, or maybe the North Face is too urban for you, depending upon how you see it. But it doesn't matter. The North Face produces clothing and produces gear that allows you to never stop exploring and constantly challenge your environment, because it doesn't matter what's happening outside, you're always going to be ready. Thank you.